But I wanted to hit you guys with something that I think is a significant story. And this was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal yesterday, and it's getting very little attention. And I think it's worthy of a discussion and probably worthy of a bigger discussion than we're going to have today. The headline from yesterday's front page of the Wall Street Journal is Homicide Spike Hits Most Large U.S. Cities. And in particular, here's the opening paragraph. Sharp rise in homicides this year is hitting large U.S. cities across the country, signaling a new public safety risk unleashed. The murder rate is a Wall Street Journal analysis of crime statistics among the nation's 50 largest cities found that reported homicides were up 24% so far this year, that shootings and gun violence also were rising. And in particular, here are several different cities that I know many of you live in who listen to this program. Percentage change in homicide in several different cities. Chicago, up 52%. San Antonio, up 34%. Phoenix, up 32%. Philadelphia, up 31%. Houston, up 27%. New York, up 24%. LA, up 14%. San Diego, up 12%. This is a graphic that I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal. So again, this is not disputable. This is direct factual evidence of what is going on in our country. Again, front page story in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Homicides up 24% so far in the 50 largest cities in America. And this led me to an interesting question. Are all the athletes that are supposedly using their platform to make things better in this country actually using their platform to make things worse in this country? And the reason why I raise it as an issue is I believe it's no surprise that homicides have surged in this city, 24% increase, which has led to many, many more, hundreds if not thousands of additional dead people in America's largest cities since the protests started in this country. And you say, why do you think that that's happening, Clay? And I'll tell you. And maybe this is counterintuitive and it probably upsets some people, but we're in the business of speaking truth to power on this show. It's because we've demonized police. Athletes in this country, teams and leagues, are all demonizing police departments. And in so doing, they are keeping police from being able to do their jobs, and they are creating hundreds, if not thousands, of additional dead people in America's cities. So ironically, while claiming that they are standing up for Black Lives Matter, they are actually leading to more black deaths, more Asian deaths, more white deaths, and more Hispanic deaths in this country. And they're putting police officers under greater stress and danger as well, all making things worse. And this ties in with one of my big themes over the past several months, the difference between creation and destruction. Social media is about destroying things. It's not about building. It's a lot easier to tear down something than it is to build it back up. It's easier to burn down a house or a business than it is to construct it. And what I wish we were having a more interesting and nuanced and intelligent discussion about is this: are athletics actually making our inner cities and our cities in general less safe than they would be if athletes just shut up and dribbled? Because right now, in the NBA and in Major League Baseball and in many other sports, soon to be the NFL, I believe what's going on is athletes are well-intentioned, but they're angry, and that anger is actually making things worse. Homicides up 24% across our nation because police can't do their jobs. And I know we got a lot of police who listen to this show, and I hear from them a lot. And in fact, we probably should just have a show soon where we open up the phone lines and we only allow police to call in and talk about the situation that they are actually seeing on the streets all over this country. Many, maybe even most police officers are big sports fans, And they are being denigrated, police officers are, by athletes, by leagues, and by owners every single day in this country. And what we've created is a fundamental lack of respect for police officers, which makes their lives more in danger and makes the lives more in danger of the people that they're trying to protect. And I just want you to think about that a little bit. I'm probably the only person in sports media who will even point this fact out. But we talk about using platforms as if it's only a good thing. I think you can make a strong argument that athletics and leagues and owners and everyone who is involved in protest in sports right now is leading to more deaths than if they had just been playing their sport and not gotten involved in politics at all. In other words, sometimes activism can lead to worse results based on the way that that activism happens, which I believe is what's occurring now. Police are being demonized, which means police can't do their jobs, which puts both police and people in the inner cities in more danger than they otherwise would be and makes it harder for police to catch the people who are actually committing the murders. I want you to think about that idea for a moment. That protesting the national anthem, that taking a knee, that all these things that most people in my business in the sports media are applauding athletes for doing is actually making things worse in this country. And there's a pretty strong statistical connection between protesting, leading to rioting, leading to demonization of police, leading to a rapid rise in the murder rate across this entire nation. The people who stop murders from happening are police. I'm not saying police are perfect. Like every other humans out there, police are imperfect. And police who commit crimes should be prosecuted and should go to jail. But the number of lives that police save every day is totally ignored. The thousands of us that are more likely, the millions of us that are more likely, the tens of millions of us that are more likely to be able to live our life in safety because of police is not discussed. All of the police who do great jobs are not praised. I haven't seen a single athlete step forward and say, hey, I'm a huge supporter of police. Maybe I'm missing it. I haven't seen a single one. In fact, the Boston Bruins, and I can't believe this story didn't get more attention, photoshopped the Boston Police logo off the T-shirt of one of their players in an Instagram post to avoid offending people. I want you to think about how crazy that is for a minute. A member of the Boston Bruins was wearing a Boston Police T-shirt, and the logo of the Boston Police was scrubbed out of his shirt. Guys, this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life as a sports fan, that police are being demonized. People who run towards the sound of gunfire, who put their lives on the line every single day to protect us across this country, are being denigrated and systemically attacked by sports leagues, by athletes, by teams, by owners. And it's flat out wrong. And it's like everybody's afraid to point it out in my industry, such that I bet I'm the only person in all of sports media that you'll hear pointing this out. Defunding the police is the dumbest argument that has ever existed in modern American life. It's the dumbest argument that anybody has made in the 21st century. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're an independent. Any sports fan who supports defunding the police is an imbecile. You don't have a functional brain, because what happens as soon as you defund the police is the murder rate skyrockets and many more people die. And if you're ostensibly claiming that Black Lives Matter, the number one group to be murdered is Black lives. So all of these athletes who are taking a knee to protest injustice in this country are arguably and directly connected to a massive increase in murders in this country because they've chosen to demonize the police. They are making decisions that are leading directly to more black deaths. And it's like the hypocrisy and the irony of this protest. You aren't allowed to point out that exactly what they are protesting, claiming that they care about the most, they are directly making less likely that lives will continue. Because the overwhelming number of people who are the victims of this 24% murder increase are black. And this is a failure of the sports media. I think a lot of people in sports media, frankly, aren't smart enough to understand the logic here or cover it, or they're afraid. If you listened to yesterday's show, you said, you heard Jason Whitlock say, look, I think a lot of people in sports media recognize that what's going on is fundamentally broken in our society and the way that we're covering sports, but they're worried about losing their job if they actually speak out, so they just shut up, talking about sports media. And they don't ask tough questions, and they don't sit down with an athlete and say, hey, have you looked at the data? Murders are up 24% in the country since you started your protest. Have you ever considered that your Black Lives Matter protest of not standing for the national anthem may be leading to more deaths? And they won't ask that question because certainly if you're a white person, you're like, oh my God, people are going to call me racist and I'm going to lose my job. And if you're a black person, people are nervous to ask that question because you're like, oh, you're not agreeing with the majority opinion, and therefore we're going to denigrate you and we're going to make you trend on Twitter and we're going to embarrass you and humiliate you until you get in line and have the same opinion as everybody else. There's no marketplace of ideas in sports media right now. There's OutKick, and then there's every other part of sports media in the country that all has the exact same opinion. It's wild to me. And I just look at the data. I mean, we're not talking about some hidden statistical source. It's a front page article in the frigging Wall Street Journal, laying out a massive increase in murders that's going on in the country right now. And you're not hearing anybody talk about it. All the athletes want to talk about Breonna Taylor, which is an interesting story in and of itself because a cop got shot by her boyfriend, which is why they returned fire there. Most people don't actually look at the data. The reason why nobody has been charged in the Breonna Taylor shooting is because any DA who looks at the evidence is like, wait a minute, the cop got shot and they returned fire and they just hit the wrong person inside? That sucks. But all these athletes are like, justice for Breonna Taylor. Just how come nobody's talking about justice for the 24% of murder victims that have skyrocketed since all of you have decided to get woke? And how come there's almost no one in sports media who's willing to actually look at the data and raise these questions and say, hey, we have this idea that the protest is making things better, but the statistical data reflects that the protest is actually making things worse because police are being demonized in the process. And so for everybody out there who's a police officer, even if no one else in sports media has your back, I do. I support you guys and all of the lives that you are saving every single day, and you do not deserve to be demonized by everyone in the media, everyone in the sports media, athletes, teams, organizations, as if you are the problem as opposed to a major part of the solution. Police, like every other profession in the United States and around the world, is filled with imperfect people, some of whom occasionally, on a rare occasion, commit crimes. When that occurs, prosecution should occur. But that's a small minority of the overall situations out there, and painting with a broad brush and saying that all police officers are awful and we need to defund them and we shouldn't have police officers in our cities is literally the dumbest argument I've ever heard anyone make in the 21st century in America. I'm fired up about this. And I want police officers to know that there is at least one person in sports media who supports you and knows and sees the thousands of lives that you guys are saving every week of every year with the work that you do. Keep it up, and hopefully, eventually people in this country are going to come to recognize how insane it is to make police the target of all of our attacks in this country over the past several months.